went to the tomb, and she saw that the stone had been removed. So she ran to Peter and the other disciple, the one that Jesus loved, and she said to them, "The Lord has been taken from the tomb, and we don't know where he is." So Peter and the other disciple ran toward the tomb. They were running together, but the other disciple got there first. And he looked in the tomb, and he saw the wrappings, but he didn't go in. Then Peter came, and he went into the tomb, and he saw the wrappings there, and he saw the cloth that had been on Jesus' face lying separately, rolled up. And then the other disciple came into the tomb also, and he saw the wrappings, and he believed, yes, the Lord has been taken away. But Mary Magdalene stayed outside, and John and Peter went back home, for they did not yet understand that the Lord had to rise from the dead. And while Mary was standing there weeping, she wept, and she looked into the tomb, and what she saw were two angels dressed in white, sitting where the Lord had been laid, one on the feet and one on the head. And they said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" And she says, "They have taken away my Lord, and I don't know where he is." And as she said this, she turned around, and she saw Jesus, but she didn't know it was Jesus. And he said to her, "Woman, why are you crying? Who are you looking for?" And she said to him, thinking that he was the gardener, "Sir, if you have taken away my Lord, tell me where you have taken him, and I will take him." And he said to her, "Mary." And she looked at him, and she said in Hebrew, "Rabboni," which means teacher. And he says, "Don't hold on to me yet, for I have not yet risen to my Father. But go and tell my disciples, I am going to ascend to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." And she ran and told the disciples, "I have seen the Lord." And she told them what they had said to him, what he had said to them. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
On a walk with a toddler I nannied in seminary, we spotted an empty cocoon hanging from the branch of a vine. And the little girl pointed at it. So I gently plucked it off the vine, and we examined it together. And I explained that it is a house that a caterpillar goes into. And I was about to tell her that it is a very special house, because in this little cocoon, the caterpillar turns into a beautiful butterfly. But before I could finish, she interrupted, and in her very sweet toddler voice, looking sadly at that discarded cocoon, she remarked, "It gone." Well, another little boy came walking up to see what we were looking at. And as he looked, she repeated, "The caterpillar, it's gone." It was such a simple and very human response. It gone. If you haven't noticed, we tend to have a bit of a bias against emptiness. Has anyone ever asked you the question, are you a glass half empty or a glass half full kind of person? It's based on an underlying assumption that full equals good and empty equals bad. Empty means something is missing. Something has been taken from us. Something is no longer with us. Full is where the good news is. But when Mary arrives at the tomb, it's empty. Completely empty. There's nothing half full or half empty about it. And perhaps because of that fullness bias we all have, Mary assumes the emptiness must be a sign of something bad. It must be cause for further grief. That Jesus' body has been stolen, taken away. Like that little girl I watched, she tells everyone she meets about this emptiness. She can't stop looking at the emptiness. And even when she looks into the empty tomb and sees angels sitting there, even when she is speaking face to face with Jesus, all she can say, again and again, they have taken my Lord away, and I don't know where they have laid him. In other words, it gone. He gone. Such a human response to emptiness. While that little girl was still looking down at the cocoon, a butterfly came and landed on a flower not very far away. And I said, "Look," pointing at the butterfly. She didn't make the connection at first. After all, what was missing from her empty cocoon was a caterpillar. But when I told her that the caterpillar had turned into a butterfly, she dropped the cocoon and she toddled off after the butterfly. As Barbara Brown Taylor writes, never get so focused on the empty tomb that you forget to speak to the gardener. Empty doesn't always equal bad or sad. Easter asks us to proclaim the empty tomb like an empty womb, or an empty nest, or an empty cocoon, as a sign of new life or life transformed, as the sign of a beginning. As Mary learns from the gardener who knows her name, the empty tomb does not mean Jesus is missing or lost. It means, as followers of Jesus have proclaimed across the ages, Jesus lives. But as with all new life or life transformed, as with babies and butterflies and children leaving home, Jesus is someone on the move. And rather than try to hold on to him or pin him down or box him up, if we want to participate in the newness he brings, if we want to abide with him, we must walk or toddle or run or follow in whatever way we can after him out into the world. You know, as followers of Jesus, we can spend a lot of time staring into that empty tomb, wondering what happened in there. But none of our gospel accounts really give us a glimpse of what happened inside that tomb. As Barbara Brown Taylor writes, that is between Jesus and God. Easter begins for us with a testimony. I have seen the Lord. Marcus Ford and John Dominic Crossan highlighted in their book The Last Week that this very simple testimony, that Jesus lives and Jesus is Lord, says it all. It's this entirely new worldview. It means that God has said yes to Jesus and no to the powers that executed him. As Borg and Crossan write, Easter is not about an afterlife or about happy endings. Easter is about God's yes to Jesus against the powers that killed him. God said no to what the world tried so hard to empty. God said no to injustice, no to hate, no to abuse, no to the misuse of power. Easter and that empty tomb means that God has emptied all of those things of power. And most importantly, God has said no to that image of God we have come to for so long. That God is a vindictive, ruthless judge who gives us over to the hands of the powers of the world, who gives up on us. Instead, God has said yes to Jesus, yes to God's dream for the world of a beloved kingdom community, yes to love, yes to life. It's in that emptiness, in that what God has emptied, that we shout Alleluia. That we shout Alleluia in praise and gratitude for a promise of life and love, not in some distant future afterlife, but a promise of life that is on the move and has already begun. This morning, when we empty out of this sanctuary and head out with joy to follow our living, loving Lord, the emptiness of our chairs here will proclaim our Alleluias. They will proclaim, Alleluia, Christ is risen. Christ is on the move.